Are you truly free? Discover Buddhism, wisdom, and Nagarjuna's middle way, Buddhist teachings. Do you think you're free? Are you really free, or is your freedom just an illusion? Let's pause for a moment and think about it. Every morning, we wake up, and the first thing many of us do is reach for our phones. We scroll through social media, checking notifications, liking posts, maybe sharing something to show the world we're doing fine, or at least that's the image we want to project. Then the day begins. We're rushing to meet deadlines, meeting others' expectations, striving for success, or just trying to survive another day. Even our smallest decisions are often driven by external expectations or our own internal fears. This isn't to say freedom is a lie, but maybe the kind of freedom we've been chasing isn't the real thing. The Buddha once faced this very question. Born into a life of luxury, he had every material freedom imaginable. But deep down, he realized that this freedom wasn't enough. Even our smallest decisions are often driven by external expectations or our own internal fears. This isn't to say freedom is a lie, but maybe the kind of freedom we've been chasing isn't the real thing. The Buddha once faced this very question. Born into a life of luxury, he had every material freedom imaginable. But deep down, he realized that this freedom wasn't enough. So he gave it all up, seeking answers in the opposite extreme: starvation, self-denial, complete renunciation. Yet, even then, he didn't find the peace he sought. It wasn't until he discovered a revolutionary truth, the middle way, that he truly understood what it means to be free. So, what is this middle way? How can it help us untangle ourselves from the invisible chains that bind us? And how can we apply it to our daily lives to experience genuine freedom? Let's explore these questions together. What is true freedom? What is true freedom? It's a question we often think we've answered. Many of us believe freedom means doing whatever we want, whenever we want, following our desires, chasing our dreams, living without limits. But is that really freedom? From a Buddhist perspective, true freedom isn't about fulfilling every whim or desire. Instead, it's about freeing the mind from the chains of attachment, aversion, and illusion. It's about liberating ourselves from the stories we cling to, stories of who we should be, what we must achieve, or how life ought to unfold. True freedom means seeing life as it is, not as we want it to be, and finding peace in that reality. The Buddha's journey to understanding freedom is one of the most profound lessons in human history. It was a moment of profound clarity. Freedom doesn't lie in extremes. It cannot be found in indulgence, where desires rule us, nor in denial, where life becomes a punishment. True freedom lies in balance, in walking the path of wisdom, where we neither cling to pleasures nor reject the world. Imagine the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, reflecting on his journey. For years, he starved himself, meditated in harsh conditions, and embraced pain, thinking it would purify his soul and lead him to enlightenment. But instead of liberation, he found only exhaustion and despair. Then came his realization, the discovery of the middle way, or Majjhima Patipada. It was a moment of profound clarity. Freedom doesn't lie in extremes. It cannot be found in indulgence, where desires rule us, nor in denial, where life becomes a punishment. True freedom lies in balance, in walking the path of wisdom, where we neither cling to pleasures nor reject the world. Imagine the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, reflecting on his journey. He remembered a moment from his youth, watching a musician tune a stringed instrument. If the strings were too tight, they snapped. If they were too loose, they made no sound. The harmony came only when the strings were tuned just right. This was the key to freedom, finding the balance that allows us to live fully without being trapped by extremes. The middle way isn't just a concept. It's a practice, a way of living. It teaches us to embrace life with awareness and equanimity, letting go of attachments to outcomes and fears of loss. And it begins with the mind by freeing our thoughts from rigid patterns and learning to see the world as it truly is. This discovery wasn't just the Buddhist personal liberation, it became a timeless guide for all of us. True freedom doesn't mean avoiding challenges or controlling everything around us. It means facing life with a clear mind and an open heart, walking the path of balance and wisdom. And when we do that, we begin to understand what it means to truly be free. The chains that bind us. Let's talk about the chains that bind us. Not the physical ones we can see, but the invisible ones we carry with us every day, the chains of modern life that keep us from experiencing true freedom. Think about social media. At first glance, it seems like a platform for connection, creativity, and self-expression. But how often do we find ourselves scrolling endlessly, caught in the trap of seeking likes, comments, and shares? The pursuit of perfection, carefully curated photos, idealized lifestyles, flawless moments creates a silent pressure. We feel the need to prove ourselves, to live up to an image, to earn validation. And in doing so, we lose touch with who we really are. Then there's career pressure. We live in a world that glorifies success, where ambition is often equated with self-worth. We're told to hustle harder, achieve more, climb higher. But at what cost? The fear of failure looms over us, tying us to endless striving. Even when we reach our goals, the satisfaction is fleeting, and we find ourselves asking, what's next? It's as if the finish line keeps moving further away, keeping us trapped in a cycle of never feeling enough. And what about change? For many of us, the idea of change brings discomfort or even fear. We cling to what's familiar, hoping to keep life predictable and safe. But life doesn't work that way. Everything is impermanent: relationships, careers, even our own health and bodies. When we resist this natural flow, we create suffering for ourselves because we're fighting against reality. Buddhist teachings have a term for this experience: Dukkha. It's often translated as suffering, but it's more nuanced than that. Dukkha is the unease, dissatisfaction, and discomfort that arise when we're attached to things being a certain way, or when we resist what is. At the root of this suffering are two forces: attachment and aversion. We crave what we think will make us happy, and we push away what we think will make us unhappy. But in both cases, we're stuck, bound by expectations and fears. This is where the Buddha's wisdom offers a way out. He didn't deny the reality of suffering. Instead, he taught us how to see its causes clearly and break free. These invisible chains, whether they come from social media, career pressure, or fear of change, aren't unbreakable. We live in a world that glorifies success, where ambition is often equated with self-worth. We're told to hustle harder, achieve more, climb higher. But at what cost? The fear of failure looms over us, tying us to endless striving. Even when we reach our goals, the satisfaction is fleeting, and we find ourselves asking, what's next? It's as if the finish line keeps moving further away, keeping us trapped in a cycle of never feeling enough. And what about change? The middle way, a path to inner freedom. Let's explore the middle way, a path the Buddha discovered that leads us beyond the chains of suffering and into true inner freedom. It's not just a philosophy. It's a way of living that transforms how we see ourselves and the world around us. At the heart of the middle way is a profound teaching called dependent origination, or paticca samuppada. This principle shows us that nothing exists on its own. Everything arises due to interconnection. Think about a wave on the ocean. Is the wave separate from the water? No, it exists because of the wind, the pull of the moon, and the movement of the ocean itself. The wave is not an isolated entity. It's part of a vast, interconnected system. In the same way, our identity, who we think we are, is not fixed or independent. We are shaped by countless conditions, our experiences, relationships, and environment. Understanding this truth can free us from the rigid ideas we hold about ourselves and others. Then there's the teaching of the two truths. The Buddha explained that there are two levels of reality: conventional truth and ultimate truth. Conventional truth is the everyday world we experience: our roles, our relationships, our to-do lists. It's the reality where we use language and concepts to navigate life. But then there's ultimate truth, which reveals that all these things we cling to have no inherent existence. They are empty, not in a depressing or nihilistic way, but in a liberating sense. Think of it this way. Imagine holding a rainbow in your hands. You can't, right? A rainbow appears because of sunlight and water droplets, but it has no solid, independent existence. It's beautiful, but it's not something you can grasp. In the same way, when we understand the emptiness of things, sunyata, we stop trying to hold on to what can't be held. We let go of rigid beliefs and fixed perspectives, and that letting go brings freedom. Now, let's bring these principles into everyday life. The middle way isn't just about profound ideas. It's deeply practical. For example, have you ever felt overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions? The Buddha taught that we can view them like clouds passing in the sky. They come and go, but they don't define the vast, open sky of our mind. This perspective helps us avoid getting stuck in extremes, whether it's clinging to happiness or resisting discomfort. Another application of the middle way is learning to observe the space between extremes. Imagine you're faced with a difficult decision. Instead of seeing only two options, right or wrong, yes or no, the middle way encourages us to pause and explore what lies in between. It's in this space that we often find clarity and wisdom. The middle way teaches us that freedom isn't about escaping life's challenges, but embracing them with a new perspective. When we understand interconnection, see beyond rigid truths, and realize the impermanence of all things, we begin to live with greater ease and compassion. This path leads us away from suffering and toward a life that is balanced, open, and free. So, how can we take these teachings and apply them even further in our modern world? Let's continue to explore. Applying the middle way in modern life. Let's bring the wisdom of the middle way into our everyday lives, where modern challenges often pull us in opposing directions. This isn't about escaping the world, but navigating it with balance and mindfulness. Take social media, for example. Instead, they become parts of a larger, interconnected whole, opportunities to practice balance, mindfulness, and inner freedom. And when we live this way, we're not just surviving life's challenges, we're transforming them into stepping stones toward peace. So how can we take this practice even further? Let's conclude by reflecting on what it means to live a truly free life. And set boundaries. Decide when and how long you'll interact with social media so it serves your life rather than controlling it. Now think about career pressure. Many of us are driven by an endless need to succeed, to achieve more, to prove our worth. But this constant striving often leads to burnout. The middle way invites us to work with intention and purpose. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, like the next promotion or a certain salary, shift your focus to the process. How can your work bring value to others? How can it help you grow? When we work mindfully, we find meaning in the journey, not just the destination. Then there's the fear of change. It's natural to resist change, to cling to what feels safe and familiar. But life itself is impermanent. Everything is constantly shifting. The middle way encourages us to embrace this truth, not fear it. Change isn't something to resist, it's a teacher. Every ending brings a new beginning, and every loss opens the door to growth. Let's bring this to life with a metaphor. Picture a rainbow after a storm. It's stunning, vibrant, and awe-inspiring, but it's also fleeting. A rainbow exists only because of certain conditions: sunlight, rain, and the right angle of perspective. Once those conditions change, the rainbow disappears. Yet its impermanence doesn't make it any less beautiful. Our struggles, too, are like rainbows. They arise because of certain conditions, but they're not fixed. They're not permanent. And just as a rainbow fades, so will our challenges. This perspective helps us face life's ups and downs with greater ease. When you live with the middle way in mind, you start to see life differently. Social media, your career, and even change itself stop feeling like battles you need to win or escape. Instead, they become parts of a larger, interconnected whole, opportunities to practice balance, mindfulness, and inner freedom. And when we live this way, we're not just surviving life's challenges. We're transforming them into stepping stones toward peace. So how can we take this practice even further? Let's conclude by reflecting on what it means to live a truly free life. As we come to the end of our exploration, let's remember the key takeaway. True freedom doesn't come from escaping problems or controlling circumstances, but from seeing through the illusions that bind us. It's not about running away from the challenges we face or forcing life to bend to our will. Instead, true freedom is found when we can look at life without the distortions of attachment, fear, or rigid expectations. If you found these insights helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more wisdom on living freely with Buddhist teachings. Let's continue this journey together, uncovering new ways to embrace life and all its challenges with openness and peace. Thank you for watching, and remember, the path to true freedom is always available to you. It's about living with wisdom, understanding that everything is impermanent, and holding space for both joy and suffering. This journey is not always easy, but it is deeply rewarding. The middle way offers us the tools to walk this path with compassion for ourselves and for others, allowing us to experience a freedom that isn't bound by the confines of our expectations, fears, or desires. So, here's your invitation. For the next week, I encourage you to practice observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Instead of reacting, simply notice them as they arise and pass away, just like clouds drifting across the sky. What does it feel like to watch your thoughts without getting tangled in them? And I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing in your life that you feel bound by, and how can you begin to let go of it? Share your reflections in the comments below, and let's start a conversation about the freedom we can create when we understand the nature of attachment and impermanence. If you found these insights helpful, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more wisdom on living freely with Buddhist teachings. Let's continue this journey together, uncovering new ways to embrace life and all its challenges with openness and peace. Thank you for watching, and remember, the path to true freedom is always available to you.